The world's first major regulation on artificial intelligence should be almost be done and dusted, but France is causing trouble. Next Tuesday, EU ambassadors will formally adopt the AI Act, a wide-ranging text to rein in misuses of the powerful technology. But some reports say France is trying to put off the vote. Why, Peter O'Brien?
Hi, Shona.
Hi.
So let's first just briefly
how?
outline what this regulation is. It's the most wide-ranging, influential rule book on artificial intelligence to date. If you look at how it's going to affect users and companies, well, we have to remember that while on the user side, yes, that applies to people in the EU, it also applies to companies that operate outside the EU but ship products to the EU market, right? So this is going to have global implications, not just French, German AI companies, but also companies around the world, Meta, Microsoft, OpenAI, the rest of them. And shout out to Luca Bertuzzi at Euractiv, who's kept abreast of the detail and earlier this week leaked an 800-page document, which is the full text and all the modifications to the previous versions. Now, the best way to think of actually what's inside is it's a kind of pyramid. You've got the highest risk at the top. So what the EU deems an unacceptable level of risk. That's things like a social credit system. That's things like using AI.
Doesn't that already exist in China?
Yeah. So,
okay.
I mean, some people see this as a kind of sort of nod to, obviously, the Chinese system. But
right.
it basically is saying that EU's saying they don't want anything like that here. And also something else would be categorizing people using AI by, for instance, race, gender, politics, religion. Then lower down, we've got high risk applications. So those will be pretty tightly regulated, limited risk systems, and finally minimal risk systems. Minimal risk will be basically unregulated. That's the kind of AI we interact with already on a day-to-day basis. For instance, if you're playing a video game, you'll come across an AI in that, right? Mm-hmm. So the high risk systems, they'll be subject to the most of the regulation in the Act, and then the limited risk will just be a bit of sort of oversight, reporting, that kind of thing. And on top of that, there's special rules for so-called general purpose AI. That's this new wave of AI we're seeing coming out, which can do a wide variety of tasks, but just from one system and one model. So it can do lots of different very clever things depending on what you ask it. And if these present a so-called systemic risk, they will require extra oversight as well.
Okay. Hopefully one day we can do a little crash course on AI in general, because it just seems so vast.
Yeah, I mean, and coming to your point on why is France pushing back against this? Well, look at the whole of Macron's tenure. It's been marked by this startup nation slogan. France has some very promising startups when it comes to AI, and they want to do their best to protect these startups. They believe the best way to do that is to limit regulation on AI. So, for instance, if you look at a few of the companies, the crown jewel is really Mistral. This was founded by 3 former Meta and Google researchers, which secured a €2 billion valuation in December. They have a very high performance and very lightweight AI model. You could even go on your smartphone and download it right now and be able to use it on your smartphone. I'm told they've been very active in lobbying on the AI Act, a lot via the former digital minister for France, Cédric O. Recently, we found out last week, Bloomberg reported that 2 scientists from Google and DeepMind potentially coming to Paris to launch a new startup with funding exceeding €200 million. And finally, there's QTI, which is a non-profit AI lab that's founded with €300 million from billionaires Xavier Niel, Rodolphe Sade, and the former Google CEO, Eric Schmidt. Now, I got the chance to sit down with their CEO, Patrick Paris, and talk a little bit about the regulation in the AI Act.
Who's responsible when the use of AI derails? Is it the person who produced the base, known as the pre-trained model? Is it the person that added layers on top of this model and made these tools available to people who aren't necessarily well-intentioned? Or is it the person who used these tools in an illegal manner? My point of view is that it's preferable and in any case necessary to regulate the usage.
Now, I also talked to Yoshua Bengio, who's one of the world's preeminent scientists in AI and received a Turing Prize for his work on machine learning. Now, he's got a slightly different view on France's approach to regulating AI.
My impression is that it's mostly motivated by the desire to see their burgeoning AI startups not have any regulation, slowing them down in any way, and that's I think an important concern when we draft regulation. But you have to put in the balance also protecting the public from well before we reach AGI from the misuse of these systems, because something that's really important to understand is that right now scientifically we don't know how to build them so that they cannot be misused for things like disinformation, building, helping humans like terrorists to build all kinds of weapons. There's too much that we can't control yet with these systems to be just carelessly putting them available to every bad actor in the world.
So, Peter, what comes next?
Well, as you mentioned, France, if the reports are to believe, is trying to postpone this vote on Tuesday at the EU ambassadors level, this kind of rubber stamp on the AI Act. Now, I don't know how much truth there is to that, but if they succeed, well, what we've got in June is EU elections, and this could scupper the act completely. However, if they don't manage to push it back, or if they're not even trying to push it back, then once the AI Act comes into force, companies will have to react very quickly. 6 months for those highest risk models to get out of the EU because they're banned, 12 months for those general purpose models to comply, and unless France changes tack, it will be trying to tackle the regulatory burden in the form of lobbying on implementation further down the line as well.